I just found a jig that will totally change woodworking forever, and that is not clickbait, that is not hyperbole. I really believe that. If you are intimidated, or if you don't want to invest a bunch of money into being able to sharpen a chisel to get it razor sharp like you've never been able to before, especially if you're new to this, or it intimidates you to try to figure out how to sharpen chisels or planes, this jig solves it all. I'm telling you, these things are going to be hot. Before we get started, if you'd like to check out any of these tools that I show today, including this jig, there'll be a link in the description and the pinned comment to help you find them easier. Let me forewarn you, the outlaw effect will be in full force on this jig. I think they will sell out within 24 hours because of how amazingly genius these are and the price point they're at and how easy they are to use. They're going to go fast, so if you want one, you may want to pause the video, go get it, and then come back and watch how it's used. If I'm being 100% honest, hand tools always kind of intimidate me, mainly because of the maintenance required to get them sharp and then keep them sharp. And I've kind of always steered clear of that because of that reason. And if you're a beginner, you understand where I'm coming from. Being able to get a sharp edge on a chisel takes a lot of skill until now. This requires no skill. And doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a professional woodworker, this will work for your chisels or planes. Now this jig is called the G-Sharp Sharp Edge, and it uses diamond honing plates to get very fast results and get very sharp chisels or planes. And it's so easy, a kid could do it. Everything you need to get started comes with the kit, so you're not going to buy a bunch of different things to get started like other sharpening methods. I have shown some on the channel before that required a bunch of different plates, a bunch of different grit papers that you have to put down. You have to have water, you have to have the honing guide. You have to have none of that for this. Everything comes complete in a package at a very affordable price. But I will recommend a couple of accessories that you probably should have on hand. And if you don't know what chisels to buy, I've got a couple of recommendations there as well. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how easy this thing is to work. We're going to sharpen some Narex Richter chisels, my personal set. I also have this World War II era chisel that hasn't been sharpened in 50, 60, maybe more years than that. We're going to put an edge on this and see if we can cut with it. I also have this hand plane that I've never sharpened, ever. And we're going to see if I can do something with it. So out of the box you get the sharpener itself, the actual mechanism that you're going to use to sharpen the chisels with, and then you also get 4 different grits of diamond stones. And we're talking 200, 400, 800, and a 1500 stone, plus you do get the backing off tool. That's really all there is to this kit, which is part of the genius because you don't have to have a large selection of stuff to sharpen your tools now. This will basically take the place of all of those other ones, and it's going to make it way, way more simple. Before I show you how crazy easy this jig is to use to sharpen your hand tools, chisels, planes, that sort of thing, you got to understand the backstory on this. This was invented by a woodworker in England, and he is the one producing these. He and his wife are still assembling these, so they're all done there in England, so that's pretty cool. One of the things this solves is it's approachable for anyone no matter what skill level you're at. I am not a hand tool guy. You should know that if you watch this channel. I mainly do power tools, but I think having a good set of chisels and some planes in your shop is necessary for certain projects or certain tasks. And being able to sharpen those easily, especially for somebody who doesn't use a bunch of hand tools and someone who's very impatient, being able to do this quickly is a game changer. Now before, I've shown some different ways to sharpen chisels. One has several different stones that you have to walk through the grits over and over and over. It's like a wet sharpening system. This takes quite a while to do, and it takes a little bit of skill to get to learn how to do that. You have to have the honing guide, you have to have a bunch of different grits of stuff. It's overwhelming for someone who's just getting into woodworking to pick up on something like that because you look at the cost of that whole system in there, and then you also look at the skill you have to develop and the time it takes. It's just, for somebody who not in the hand tools, it's very overwhelming. It's scary. So that may not be the right approach for some people. There is also a drill press jig that Mike Taylor uses, but again, you need the jig, you need the several different discs, and you need a drill press. This, you don't need any of that stuff. You buy a jig, you have a chisel, a plane, any of your hand tools, and a leather strop. That's literally all you need to get these things super sharp. This jig will sharpen from 22 degrees all the way up to 90 degrees, and will sharpen chisels as narrow as 1/8 of an inch all the way up to 3 3/8 of an inch wide. So this will sharpen basically any size chisel that you're going to have in the shop. The main benefit of this is you get consistent results easily, and it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or you're left-handed, this will work for you. Now, I've been in contact with the inventor of this because when I saw it, I purchased this myself. I thought it was a genius setup. I was like, I gotta have that because, again, not a hand tool guy, and this is gonna make my life easier. One of my main questions when I got this was how long or how often am I gonna have to replace these diamond honing plates? Because you don't wanna fuss with that stuff, right? He's got a set that's 9 years old, and they still work great. He's got a set that's 5 years old, still working great. The 800 and 1500 grits actually get better with age. So you're not gonna have to replace these very often at all, but if you do, you can get the entire set for about 25 bucks. So it's very inexpensive to even have to replace these. You're talking 25 bucks every 5 to 9 years? Come on, it's a no-brainer. Another question I had about the jig was, is this something new? Is this something that is like, you're basically beta testing on woodworkers? No, this is invented in the year 2000. It actually come to America or around about the 2010 time because there's a patent on the U.S. Patent Office website from 2010 for this exact jig. So this has been around for a long, long time. It's been proven to work, and of course, it's been tested by thousands of people. You're just now knowing about it because I'm just now knowing about it. Before I show you how easy this thing is to sharpen your chisels and your planes, let's talk about chisels. If you're a beginner and you don't know about chisels, it's all in the metal. Everything that matters about a chisel is the quality of steel being used. Now you can buy a very cheap set on Amazon or at your local hardware store or anything like that, and typically those will be okay for very, very rough stuff. I even have one right here. I think this is a Skill or something like that. These are very, very inexpensive, and the metal is very, very soft. That's the reason they are inexpensive. This metal will not hold an edge very long at all, and you'll be resharpening it over and over and over, or you'll actually get big divots in that metal, and you'll have to grind it down and start over. They're a pain in the rear, and there's better options out there for not a lot more money. I'm gonna give you 2 options for chisels that I personally recommend. Now you can buy these individually, so if you don't want to spend the money on a kit, which the kit I'm going to show you is very inexpensive, but if you don't want to, you can buy these inexpensive for $10 to $12 each. Now this set I'm going to show you is a Narex 4-piece bevel edge chisel set. This is a very good set for about $50 retail. Now you're getting a 6, 12, 20, and 26 millimeter chisels, so you're getting 4 chisels for only $50. That's a very solid deal, and these chisels are really nice. These come with a 25-degree ground bevel, so when you get your jig, all you do is set it to a 30-degree bevel so you can get that micro bevel. The handles are going to be European beech, so if you're using mallets and things like that, it's going to be fine. You're not going to have to worry about them breaking, splitting, anything like that under normal conditions. So the steel they're using on these chisels, really good steel. It's actually a fine-grained tempered chrome magnesium steel that's hardened. So these aren't going to be as soft a material as these. Now there's a better set. If you have the budget, it's kind of a buy once, cry once thing, and it's actually this box set that I have here. I also like the box just to keep it in because you can throw it in the drawer, anything like that, and it's out of the way. It's just kind of cool to look at. Now this is a 5-piece set, imperial here, 1/4, 3/8, half, 3/4, and 1-inch chisels. Basically most of the standard size chisels that you're going to use in your shop. Now these chisels are actually made with a different metal, and they're also processed differently to make them better. These are made from chrome vanadium. Say that 3 times fast. And they're also doing a drop forge method on these, whatever that means. They're also cryogenically treating these to negative 310 degrees Fahrenheit, and that makes this steel extremely hard. Not hard enough that you can't sharpen it, but hard enough that it's going to hold that edge without dulling very quickly. These are some of the best chisels I own. I own the Sandvik, I own the 2 Cherries, and I own this Narex set. I think this is the best, but it also is much, much pricier than this other set that I showed you. But it depends on your budget, but that first set is a very good starter set that you're not going to be disappointed with like you would be if you went down to the box store and picked up one of these cheap sets. You're going to be throwing these away or throwing them in a drawer and not using them after a while because they're frustrating. Go ahead and get you a decent set. That $50 set's one I would recommend if you're starting out, if you're on a budget. But if you do have the money, this box set is absolutely fantastic. Now I'm also going to recommend you pick up a leather strop. They're very inexpensive, but they will make your life much easier, especially when you get these things sharp, because you can actually use these to touch back up your chisel without having to go back through that method in some cases. Pick up the strop, you'll pick up this charging stuff, wipe it on there or rub it on there, and then from there you can just pull your chisel backwards across that strop and it just touches it back up. You'll also want to do that after that 1500 grit just to polish it is what you're doing. And this makes them very, very sharp. This one's genuine horse butt leather, very hard leather, so it's going to last you a very long time. It also comes with this polishing compound bar. Or you can pick up this one with the handle, which also comes with the compound, so you don't have to worry about trying to buy that extra. A couple things to note before you use this jig. The creator of this jig actually recommends that you take the 1500 and the 800 grit honing stones and put them face to face and move them back and forth. What that'll do is take off the slight roughness that's on there, so it just basically hones these two so they're not quite as harsh. The second thing to note, I missed it, and you shouldn't. On the bottom of this jig is a blade spacer. You see me taking this off the mounting board because I missed it. Take that blade spacer out, because what that's going to do is allow you to get as close to center as possible with these smaller chisels. You may see me using the handheld honing part, but that's not correct. You should use the blade spacer. I didn't realize there was a blade spacer in there because I didn't read the directions. So let me be a lesson to you. But that blade spacer does a couple of things. One, it allows you to get as center as possible, and it also frees up that other hand, so you're not having to hold this handheld part. You can literally just hold down the chisel and then use the jig as normal. Be sure to take this blade spacer out from underneath if you mount this to a board. And again, you're gonna see me using the handheld part in the video, but the blade spacer is what you should use. But this is square, so it all worked out. When you first get your chisels, they're probably gonna look just like this. There's a bevel, but there is no micro bevel. The micro bevel is where you really get the cut. So you're gonna have to put that on there somehow. And most people use different methods to do that with. Maybe it's a bunch of different sharpening stones, or even the flat glass that I showed before, where there's actually film that goes from low grit to high grit that you use to sharpen your chisels. It works well, but it's also many, many steps in there, and it's also a decent investment. This is not a very big investment, and it works extremely well so that you can get these sweet micro bevels. As you see, that very polished edge right there, that's exactly what you're looking for, and this is going to do it very, very fast. So the first thing I'll do is show you how to step through these grits to get that micro bevel. Then I'll show you how to touch one up. If you already have that micro bevel, you just need to resharpen. Even easier than going from nothing to micro bevel. And then I've got these World War II era chisels that probably haven't been sharpened in 50, 60 years or more. We're going to test one of these and see if we can get it sharp enough to cut. This is seriously one of the easiest methods to sharpen hand tools that I have seen to date. And I am no hand tool user, and if I can sharpen one that is scary sharp, you can too. And we're talking like very sharp and very easy to do in a very short amount of time. Check this out. First thing I did was just cut a scrap piece of plywood so that I could mount this to it so I can clamp it down so it doesn't move around. And there are 4 holes, one on each side, so you can actually do that. And it was very easy to do. I would actually recommend that so that you can clamp it down. You could drill a hole in this, hang it on the wall, or hang it out of the way or anything like that too. So it just gives you a better base so that it doesn't slide around. It's not necessary, but it does help. All right, first things first. This is my Nerex Richter chisel. These are some of my favorite chisels, the ones that come in this box. So I quickly ran through the sharpening method just to show you how very, very sharp this gets, very fast. You can see it's pulling these wispy curls off this piece of walnut. And then I done the unthinkable, and I took the 200 grit, put it in the back off tool, and then straight across, I just dulled this thing up. I mean, I just took that edge right off. And now you can see I can't cut any wood with this at all, not without a lot of force. And if you know anything about hand tools, a dull tool is dangerous. It causes you to put up too much pressure, you wind up pushing through, you get your hand. It's very dangerous. So a sharp tool is actually a safer tool. And that's what you're wanting. You want to be able to make work easier and safer. So these chisels from the factory have about a 25-degree angle on them, but we want to make a micro bevel. And the micro bevel is going to be that very, very tip of the chisel that you're going to want to bevel at a different angle. And in this case, we're going to set this jig to 30 degrees. And setting the jig up is extremely easy because all you do is loosen the knob on top and then slide it to the indicator where you want this. Now this will sharpen from 25 degrees all the way to 90 degrees, so a variety of hand tools can be sharpened with this. Once you set it at the desired angle, just snug the knob down. Now you want to step through the grits, just like you're sanding wood. You're going to start off the lower grits and move through the higher grits. In this case, we're going 200, 400, 800, and then 1500, but there are some steps you need to pay attention to get this done right. It's not hard, you just got to do it right. Now the backing tool and the jig itself are magnetic, so when you put these pieces in there, they snap in, so you don't have to worry about them coming out or anything like that. It's not an extremely strong magnet, but it is strong enough to hold these pieces of metal diamond honing stones in there. All right, so the backing off tool also serves another purpose. You want to use this to help set the chisel or whatever tool you're sharpening as close to center of this jig as you can get. And there's grooves here that will accept this to help keep this in position. Because if you don't use that, when you sharpen and you're moving this left to right, you'll wind up moving it off of the blade and it could come in contact with the side of the chisel, causing you a little more issues. So just make sure you're using this backing off tool to center the chisel as close as possible. All right, so we got our 200 grit in there. We have our dull chisel. You're gonna set it against the backing off tool and push it towards this jig. Now this hinge actually has a little bit of play in it by design. This is not a defect, this is by design. What you want to is push till you touch the jig and then put a little bit of pressure and you'll see that jig move a little bit, just a little bit. That's it. You don't need to force this in there. If you force this in there, you're just causing unnecessary wear and it's not necessary. You're creating a micro bevel. The jig will do it for you, so you don't have to do a bunch of work here. Then from there, all you do is hold pressure down right here on the chisel, and you're gonna slide the jig back and forth about 20 times, give or take. 20, 25 times at this 200 grit. It's all it's gonna take. It's very easy. It slides easy, doesn't create a lot of work. Your arm's not gonna be tired when you're done. It's just gonna be very, 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 very easy. Now, once you do that, on the back side, you should feel a little bit of a burr or a little piece of wire. That's that metal that's coming off of there. If you don't, try again. Now I have a burr, so we move to the next step. Go from 200 to 400, repeat the process. This is the easiest thing I have ever done to sharpen hand tools. Usually you got a giant system that you're having to use, a bunch of different stones, all that stuff. This is super, super simple. You can start seeing that micro bevel take shape. If you can see the shiniest tip on there, it's just a different color. You should have a little bit of a burr. Now from here, you're gonna wanna take the 1500 grit stone, put it in your backing off tool, and you're gonna wanna put the text side against the tool. You wanna lay your chisel flat, take that backing off tool, and it's just gonna remove that burr. That's all you're after. 800 grit. $15 or $20 times, swap it out for the... Now it's important to note that as you go through the grits and you get finer grits, so 800 and 1500, you're probably not gonna feel much of a burr, if any at all, on the backside because you're not removing as much material. Don't try to grind this down till you feel a burr because it's probably not gonna happen. Light pressure, a little bit of deflection in that hinge. Now we have a beautiful micro bevel. Do you know how difficult this is to get with those wet stones that you have to step through the grits over and over with the honing guide? That is extremely hard to do, and it takes a lot more effort and time to get there. This literally takes a few minutes per chisel, if that. You're probably looking at 1 to 2 minutes per chisel if you're coming from a very dull chisel, because most of the time you're not going to let your chisels get extremely dull. You can touch this up. You can use this to touch up chisels too to keep them sharp. Now from there you're going to want a leather strop. Now there's a couple of options here. I think this is horse leather if I'm not mistaken. It's one of the tougher leathers. This is also fairly inexpensive. I have one like this. I also have one that's on a handle, and then you'll just need some strop charging stuff. From there you'll just rub a little bit of that charging on there, hold your chisel flat, and just pull away from the strop. That just polishes that back side. If there's any micro burrs back there, this will take it off. Some people also hold it at that 25-degree angle and pull a couple of times just to polish that very, very tip off of there. It's a good idea. Now we're gonna retest this chisel that I dulled completely. Micro bevel on this chisel. You should be able to, look at that. Hey, I am not a hand tool guy. I'm not. I love power tools, but hand tools are absolutely necessary for woodworking, especially having a nice set of chisels and being able to use these for a variety of reasons. Maybe you just need to shave a little bit off. Maybe you're making mortise and tenon. Maybe you're doing a whole bunch of different things you need these hand tools for, but this is by far. We're talking about going across the grain on this hardwood here, and I'm getting those wispy shavings, and that's from someone who is very inexperienced with hand tools. This is one of the easiest ways to sharpen chisels that I have seen to date. With the grain, you'll probably get even better, more, look at that, oh my gosh. Come on. There's a few reasons that make this jig absolutely genius. Number one, you don't have to worry about keeping this thing square because on either side, there's a ledge there that will square this blade up to 90 degrees to the sliding part of the jig. Or even when it's a very narrow chisel, you have the spacer that you can use that also is 90 degrees because it's referencing off of that one side. So you don't ever have to worry about getting a crooked or a unsquare chisel. And when you put your chisel on there, you want to make sure it remains flat on the surface, not raised up, not kicked up from the backside, but perfectly flat as you press it into the jig. And again, you will see that slight flexion there in the hinge, perfectly normal. It's exactly what's supposed to happen. But what you don't want to do is jam it in there so that it raises the whole thing up. It doesn't take a ton of pressure, very light pressure, and it's all you need. It is so very easy. Don't try to overthink this because it really is as easy as it looks. Now, can this jig bring back these World War II era chisels? Now, these were sent to me as a gift from a fan who lived overseas and says that he inherited these from someone who used them for the gun stocks and things like that in World War II. Very cool story. However, I haven't touched them because I didn't want to mess them up trying to sharpen them, but I believe in this jig so much, I think we're going to try to sharpen one of these. Now you can see here, this one hasn't been touched. Now the wider one does have a little bit of a nick in that blade, which would require me to grind it all the way back down and then start all over, which I probably will do after this. But for quickness sake, I'm going to show you this narrow one. It literally won't even cut the wood. We're talking, I can't make it cut the wood. This wider one I have already sharpened, and as you can see, as I push along, I'm getting these nice little curls as I push the chisel. Now it could use a little more sharpening. I can tell the difference that this one isn't quite as sharp as those other ones I was using, but again, this one probably hasn't been sharpened in 50 or 60 years, so there's that. This is pretty cool. I love how easy this jig is, even on older chisels, so it doesn't even matter what chisels you have. This is a set of chisels I have from Sandvik. Now this one already has the micro bevel on it. Tools get dull when you use them, but to touch them up with this is extremely easy. I'm just going to put the 1500 grit stone in there and back and forth about 15 or 20 times. That's it. After that, I just pull it on that strop a couple of times and it's ready to cut. And as you can see, we get a very long crispy curl on that leopard wood using this already sharpened but now just touched up chisel. It's easy. What about these plane blades? Because I got this Tay Tools number 69.5 plane a long time ago, a few years ago. I've never sharpened this blade. All right, put the blade back into plane. Again, not a hand tool guy. I don't know how many times I have to say that, but this thing is sharp now. This is the first time I've ever sharpened it, and I don't think it comes sharp from the factory, or at least not really sharp, but now it cuts much better and it's actually usable. Now, as you can see, these honing plates get kind of dirty or grimy. They get filled up with stuff. So instead of buying a new one, all you have to do is have a good quality pencil eraser and that stuff comes right off. If you have the bigger, you remember the old-timey ones that you had in school, some of us had in school, the bigger ones, those work much better. I'm gonna pick one up. I don't have one, but the inventor of this actually recommends the bigger ones. But you can see this regular pencil eraser takes that stuff right off. And it's not gonna hurt your stone or anything like that. So you wanna get a good quality eraser just to keep those things clean, or you can use a sanding eraser. But the standard rubber erasers will probably work and be much better for these stones, and they're dirt cheap at Walmart or Amazon or anywhere else. As you can see how easy this is to use, this will be a staple in my shop now. I am so glad I saw this and was able to pick it up. I think it's a game changer. I really do, for beginners or intermediate woodworkers or those who just don't have experience with hand tools such as me. This lets you get a very sharp edge, very easy, very fast, without having to have a bunch of skill or a bunch of other products laying around and keeping up with. You just have to have this jig. It's so super simple. If you want one, check it out. Link in the description and the pinned comment. I'm telling you, these are gonna sell out fast. If you like this video and you wanna see a different method on how to sharpen chisels, there's that drill press kit I mentioned earlier. Click in that box to watch that video. Click the box to get to the big old virtual fist bump.